What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Dome Zone podcast. I'm here with my co-hosts, Ed Charlton and Mike Adams. We were sort of just talking a little bit off camera about...
You're our co-host.
What?
We host, you're on.
What's up?
You're our co-host.
Why don't you do the intro then?
No, you do it.
Oh, okay.
Don't cry. Here
Anyway.
Come on.
This is take 2, by the way.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit off camera. We might have thought the cameras were on beforehand, but that's all, neither here nor there. We're sort of getting into recruiting and how hard it is for coaches to recruit high school players these days, just because of the new rules and everything, and how different the roster sizes and the different scholarship things are. But like, it seems like it creates sort of a really big hurdle for the high school guys too. Like, how do you guys, from like a coach's perspective, sort of talk to the high school guys and explain to them that they're kind of moving the goalposts on them a little bit, where their friends or maybe even their brother 2 or 3 years ago had this stats, these whatever, and jumped right to the school he wanted or to a school in general, and now they're sort of doing similar things and aren't getting the same kind of play from college coaches that they would want.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it's just way different now with all the rule changes. So, the recruiting of old is gone, and we got to, pivot and try to figure out how to do this thing now. And, like we were kind of already talking about the, your guys who are, used to, they develop late, they're mid-major type guys, and there's usually mid-majors around, like for these guys to have a good opportunity and scholarship money and a chance to go, compete at a Division I level or Division II level. And now those opportunities aren't there because there's not money. They're trying to, some of them are in a holding period trying to figure out exactly what the NCAA is going to do. The 34 scholarship thing, fully funded scholarships isn't going to help, the mid-majors necessarily, because the school has to fund it and approve it. It's not the baseball team's decision. Obviously, every team would.
And a lot of times baseball isn't even the most profitable thing.
Right.
A lot of
it's
times.
Not profitable.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like every school, obviously, if they had the opportunity to, would opt, 34 full scholarships, thank you, let's do it.
Yeah.
But it's not a level playing field in that regard. So the schools that are going to get that, your SECs, your Big 12s, and that maybe some in the Big 10, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I'd have to imagine some in the Big 10.
Yeah, some, but not all.
Yeah,
so now you're competing in a conference where one team can fully fund 34 scholarships and another one can't.
Yeah.
So
you're walking into a weekend. Yeah.
How do you compete?
Exactly.
It definitely makes it a lot tougher. And, we were touching on, how it's really hard to build a program anymore. It's more like year to year.
Yeah.
Free agency on steroids. Let's bring in
literally
college players and play instead of trusting a bunch of 18-year-olds out on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of schools that literally have donors that are essentially playing GM with their program. So, hey, we have this guy that donated this much money, but he wants us to get these players and he wants us to get rid of these players. Like, that's actually a scenario that happens, especially at the big programs. And that's kind of what it is. They're playing fantasy baseball, and the goal is to be involved in that somehow as a player. But, I mean, there's not really developing. Like, you can't really look forward to going, joining a program and working with X coach because, you like his hitting velocity or his pitching velocity. Like, you could go there for a fall and struggle and get bounced. So, it's a lot, like what we tell guys to look forward to school is a lot different than, now than what we had used to.
Even the scholarships aren't even guaranteed for 4 years now for most of these guys.
Yeah.
It's a year-to-year scholarship.
Yeah.
And, that number can go up if you produce. Mm-hmm. And it probably will because they're going to try to keep you if you produce. They got to figure out a way to incentivize you to stay most of the time now, because another school can just give you, $60,000 in NIL money. Here's a full scholarship.
Yeah.
Apartment.
Yeah, literally.
Here's a car, and let's go at this thing and enjoy your life a little bit.
We're pleased to announce our inaugural sponsor is Clean Fuego. As you guys know, Clean Fuego is the leading training tool to help guys improve their throws. It helps guys work on their grip, polish pitches, visualize how they're releasing, and work out subtle changes in real time, and so much more. They just released the new Fuego Fly 01. They are made of a material that allows you to warm up against a wall, so you don't need a throwing partner or a net. You can also throw them at the ground, or lay on your back and toss them upwards towards the ceiling. They have texture and stitches, so you can easily blend a Fly-O with a baseball. There are also benefits in how the Fly-Os impact the wall. With the limited distance from the wall when warming up, the thrower could start to recognize the ball bounces and ricochets off the wall for more feedback in addition to the visual. We use the Fuegos and the Flyos daily at BPC, and you can scoop your own Fuegos on their website, cleanfuego.com, or find them on Amazon or any social media shop.
Real quick before we go on, is that red light on? Now I'm domed up about it.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay,
It's on.
thank God.
I mean,
Sorry.
UC too. Wasn't it the coaching staff for Texas A&M or for Texas?
What?
Texas, yeah.
I mean, yeah, like the coaching staff from Texas A&M or from Texas literally left from the College World Series. They got second place,
yeah.
didn't they? And
Yeah, yeah.
and then they went to Texas. Like it's
Yes.
not even just the players;
I
it's
totally
just the
forgot about
culture
that.
in general. Like the NCAA has made a mess of all of this, honestly. And it's you can't develop a program, one, because your staff's not going to be there long enough, and two, like the players aren't going to be long enough either.
Like every year you have to re-recruit your own
You're re-recruiting
players.
your own player. Yeah, you got to hope they do well, but not well enough to go get paid by somebody else, and that's even
Well,
at the big schools.
An interesting aspect to this, and I know football is a little different, but I was kind of fortunate enough at my school. We had a really big time football quarterback kid, Tyson Bagent for the Bears, and they had like NFL scouts there the whole season, all the time, and going into his last season, he entered the transfer portal, and it was like kind of widely known sort of around campus that he was like staying, like, but he was getting like cars and all this type of stuff from other places, and it was sort of in the rumor mill, but most people think but like that the coaching staff was like, yo, enter the portal, get all these offers, and then we can pitch that Tyson Bagent, the number one quarterback in Division II history, decided to come back and stay at Shepherd and didn't move on to all these places when they were talking to other guys. And I know they got a couple big recruits from that. They got like, not from that, but during that season. But it seems like there's way more kind of, not that that's backdoor, but just sort of like backdoory angles that you can pitch in recruiting now, instead of this is our campus, this is what your life's like for the next 4 years. It's like, this kid could have gone and gotten a lot of money someplace else, but decided not to. Don't you want to be in the same place that he wants to be? Which is just sort of very like, it just doesn't seem as organic as it once was, and it is.
Yeah, because Garrett Nussmeier wants to be at LSU, and he stays at LSU and not Shepherd. So it's like you can sell both of those dreams, but
Exactly,
people
yeah.
still got to decide.
Yeah. It's
You're no longer really selling the program as a smaller school or a mid-major necessarily. You're selling the opportunity to come here and play, and if you put up good numbers, you can bounce.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I think that's something too. I want to say again that we were talking about earlier, but I mean, now just with the landscape, like everything is a JUCO. Like D2, D3, small D1s, big time D1s. Like you're basically going somewhere to play and build a resume to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the NCAA has built. And I think that's like, that's important to note, that the playing time is going to be the most important thing. If you go to a school where you don't play, like you're basically not giving other schools anything, to recruit you off of for the next year. So obviously we talked to the guys about where they're going to play the most, and then, from there, if they do well, they can kind of climb up the ladder.
Yeah, because you can go to a nice school or like a better school, but if you're not putting up any numbers, if you're not boasting or your own stuff, then serves no purpose to flex on
the
your
D3
Instagram.
kid that has like 100 at bats and hit 300 with like 10 home runs, they're bringing that kid in to play shortstop instead of the guy that's maybe been sitting there as a backup for 2 years. So.
Yeah, at a bigger Division I school or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times, not a lot of times, but that kid who maybe hasn't produced for them or hasn't done anything for them for the first 2 years, on that same team, if it's a bigger school, they'll bring in the D3 kid to battle with that kid for a position, and you see real quick, like, the dude that's been actively playing for the last 2 years or whatever is going to have a big leg up on the dude.
He's got like 600 at bats under his
Yeah,
belt.
yeah.
versus
I mean,
the kid who's got 40.
Yeah.
That's what they want, experience. I mean, and rightfully so. I mean, if I was a coach in that position, I mean, that's what you're looking for. You don't want to start a freshman on Friday who's never pitched in college before.
Yeah.
Or you can start somebody who's logged 200 innings at another school. I mean, experience is invaluable, and that's why they're building their rosters out like this. And how everything's set up allows you to basically pick and choose players that you want from anywhere to bring them in and help you win. And you don't have to bring guys in that you think could be good and help make them good. Like you're just bringing in players that you think are good and getting rid of guys that don't help you win immediately.
Yeah, winning immediately, like, as far as the bigger schools are concerned, it seems like all of their win immediately sort of mindset is in the grab a transfer that has valuable experience and we can plug them in and play today. Because a lot of the high school guys that these bigger schools are getting are like, at least around here I've noticed, and when we went down to Jupiter, I sort of noticed that like all the high school guys that are committed to big places are also like potential draft prospect guys that could go. Mm-hmm. And it seems like those are the only type of guys that are getting any type of real attention from the schools that, you know, everyone dreams about going to and seem unattainable. But, you know, you always had kids that go there and kind of ball out and propel themselves from that standpoint, where it's sort of like, it's almost like you're guilty till proven innocent now. You got to really show, like, unless you're a draft prospect in high school, we're not really focusing on you too much.
Well, yeah, it's also just tough to compete, you know, in the SEC, ACC, Big 12 with a bunch of 18-year-olds versus a bunch of 21-year-olds.
Exactly.
You know, that's a way different person. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a kid versus a man.
Totally.
And it's just really hard to compete at those levels with younger players.
Mm-hmm.
You need the experience and you need the guys who are a little bit more confident and have done it already to come in and win. It's tough to just plug an 18-year-old or 5 of them. You know, when I was a freshman in school, we started 6 freshmen up the middle of the field. You know, that's tough to do anymore. You know, that was at a mid-major.
Yeah. Now,
like, that's unheard of.
It's harder now than ever to get drafted. I know we kind of heard something about that the other day. But what is it like for a high school guy that's sort of getting ready to maybe look at the draft and something like that and potentially go if they're high enough, or go to college and maybe get like an NIL type deal if they're going to like a bigger school? Do you think that influences their decision a lot if they think they stand to make a little more money or something like that in college than go higher in the draft?
I think it depends, you know, case by case basis. Like, not every high school kid is going to get a ton of NIL money thrown at them. So like, obviously now you can get paid in college and you can make some money that
make a lot,
you know, yeah, obviously like money you wouldn't be making anywhere else or at any other time period. So if you can, you know, again, it just depends. Like, if you're more of a pro-ready type high school player, I think you take your shot and go, because it's harder than ever to get in. And if you're ready to do it, go get it.
That's a good point. I hadn't even considered
like,
that.
You know, if you're a guy that, you know, you're toolsy, but you haven't really put it all together, you're still a prospect because of all the tools you have. But, you know, if the consistency's not there and, you know, maybe you haven't seen a ton of high level velocity or spin as a hitter, and, you know, you haven't really shown that you can handle that yet, or you don't feel confident in handling it, maybe you do go to school and, you know, if you're that high profile, you'll probably get a good chunk of NIL money, and you'll buy yourself some more time to figure it out against higher competition. And if not, you know, then you'll end up probably leaving that school because you're not going to play and compete there. You'll go down to a mid-major and you'll play, and hopefully you dominate and get another shot. But, you know, I think that's, to kind of go back to the NCAA side of this, like, it's going to make those top conferences way more competitive. The trickle down from that is because all these big schools that recruit these high school players, you know, that didn't pan out, they're going to drop down to a mid-major. The guys who popped late or were a great steal for a mid-major, they're going to produce for a year and they're going to go up. So it's going to level it's going to filter out where guys should actually be.
Yeah.
And make college baseball across the board way better. But, you know, that also makes it way harder to play and get in.
I was going to say, I was sort of talking about it a little bit this summer, I remember, but I don't understand what's stopping the NCAA landscape as a whole in the next 5 years from just being like MLB Junior, where the SEC and the ACC are the two.
I mean, that's what it's doing now. Guys are getting drafted and going to AA, playing for a year, and going to the show.
Exactly.
I mean,
that's what I mean.
What it is.
It's like all the mid majors are minor leagues.
Well, I wouldn't even be shocked if it turns into like, you know, there's really just 3 conferences or 4 conferences in college baseball,
really?
And everything else is like essentially club.
Yeah.
Genuinely, yeah. It's like, and like we were saying, the filter, I feel like because it's new, there's still some play and people figuring it out. But like the same way kind of baseball was in like the early 2000s, where everybody's sort of mental is starting to shift and people are looking at players differently. Like there's going to be some type of shift where the college analytics or everything gets good to where every team in those conferences know what their formula for success is and can really pretty
a lot of the good ones do already. I mean, that's definitely one of the things we saw in the portal this year. Is, I mean, there's thousands of names that go in the portal. So how are you a school gonna determine who you like versus what you don't like? And that's where like the analytical piece comes in. You see a guy that, you know, you like this pitch that he has, like, hey, if he takes this pitch and throws it in the zone at this clip, like, we think he can be good at our level. And that's the stuff you have to do unless you're basically just guessing off of stats. And as like a college reliever, if you throw 12 innings, like, God forbid you have one bad one, you already have bad numbers for the year. So like, there's ways that these schools are determining who they like, who's good. I mean, we've had guys that went in the portal that went to good schools that didn't have good years, but are good. But just because of the sample size, like, you know, they kind of get overlooked by like, why's he got a 4 ERA? Well, he pitched 12 innings through 11 zeros and gave up 6 in the other one, so he's got 4 or 5. So just stuff like that. I wanted to touch on too, like how you mentioned the draft. You know, obviously baseball is getting smaller. So like, I think you're going to start to see kids that, I mean, obviously the more money you get, the more opportunity you get. So I think you're going to start to see a lot more players in high school that have a chance to get drafted, like end up taking it. Just because like before it's like, you know, if I don't get drafted now, I'll just get drafted 3 years from now. Like that's not how this is going to go. Like there's, I think more and more people are realizing like, how hard it is to get into pro ball. So when you get in there, like you can't just, you know, act like it's just going to be there down the road anymore, especially with, you know, how guys just go to school, they have a bad fall, they get cut. You know, so I think you're going to start to see people like take a chance on that opportunity, especially with a 20-round draft. Like, you know, if you're getting picked, you're doing something right. So, you know, I think you're going to see more people take it.
Yeah, there's no longer like the favor pick in the 38th.
No, there's no more friend. There's no more like we're picking you to build a relationship. Like
you are getting picked because
they're not wasting
enough.
picks. There's
no more wasted picks like that.
And they're not picking guys that they don't think like would actually sign. And as a high school guy, like that's the most leverage you're ever gonna have.
Yeah.
And it might not be the most money you ever get. I mean, there's a lot of guys that have gone like 30th and gone back to school and then gone in the top 10. But I mean, there's also a lot of guys that are projected top 5 that never even go to college and end up being a viable option and never get drafted again. I'd love to see the numbers on that somehow. We'll never be able to know because everyone always says the odds are better. I mean, I know more people that could have gotten drafted that ended up never getting drafted again than I do that, you know, got drafted and then ended up getting more money. I mean, I feel like that's more rare. But that's just, you know, us in this scenario. But I think now, like, you have to be a fool to not consider it, you know, especially coming out of high school.
Well, yeah, it seems like kind of what you were talking about earlier, where it's like when you get to school and the whole performance aspect, it's like for these guys, and I mean, it should be, you know, everybody says it should be all year round, but it's like the day they graduate, it feels like they kind of have to have their foot on the gas because, like, let's say they don't get drafted, right? It's like you gotta, like, I remember when I first went to college, my freshman fall, I was obviously hyped up or whatever, but sophomore year, I was like, fuck another fall, like just get through this and hopefully by springtime I'll be putting it on. But if you go through the fall and you don't have the fall that they want you to have, and if they see one thing that looks a little ugly or a little hairy, they could send you off, you know what I mean?
And that was always the sell with colleges, like, hey, go there for 3 years, develop, like, you know, get into a college lifting program, like, you know, work with the staff, like get used to the, you know, the college life. And like, that's obviously not the sell anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's not what it is. It's like, hey, you're going to go there. If you do good, great. They'll put you in. Like if you don't, they ship you off. And it's like, if you end up in a scenario, like at a school that doesn't have good player development, which like you could go anywhere and find player development, and sometimes some have no player development. So like that's kind of the sell. And now it's almost like, you know, maybe you get into the system and that's where you develop, but also like you don't have a lot of time anymore. So I think that's just where it makes our job a little bit more important. Like you have to have a good support system either way that you go. Like we have so many, like we had like 20 guys that we were helping trying to get into the portal this year, like all players that were good. But there is no one that does that. Hey, I'm going to help you navigate the portal. Like that's not a thing. No one even knows how it is. So it's so now our job has become more important on the portal end and on like hey, when you go to college, you're going to develop. Like if you get cut, like how do you know this pitching coach is going to work with what you were doing over there? Like, you know, so it just changes, you know, everything that you're doing.
And you guys are kind of dealing with it from both ends where, you'll send, like we got a ton of guys in college, but if 10 of those guys are like, I need to hit the portal and find a new spot. And then you got, like we were saying earlier, we got more than a handful of high school guys that are kind of floating around looking for what their best opportunity is. It's like you guys got to sort of manage like
should you or shouldn't you go?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Getting them into the
There's
into the right
there's
system.
definitely some guys too that were like, where are you gonna go?
Yeah, like we told him, like, yo, you should not transfer because
That's your best option.
you're going to get in the portal with shitty numbers or no numbers
Yeah.
versus all these thousands of other players that
Thousands.
have numbers.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to get picked up. Stay where you're at another year, try to get on the field, produce, and then go if you really want to. But you're not going to get another opportunity at a Division I level with no numbers really, unless you're coming from an SEC, an ACC,
Yeah.
a Big 12. Now, a mid-major might say, okay, yeah, let's take this kid from Clemson that couldn't hack it there, but maybe he can figure it out here.
And yeah, the talent level you'll need to get to Clemson, obviously, you're a good player, but sort of we were talking about earlier where the Clemson kid might fall back to the team that already has had their shortstop playing for the last 3 years, but because that team was like, yo, this kid's coming from Clemson, let's put him on, he still hasn't played the way he wants to play, and then you might start the season riding pine for the D2 school or something because they have a guy that's been playing for the last 3 years and knows what's good, you know what I mean? So it just seems like opportunity where in 8 months you go from being high school draft pick and all you need is really like, you're not playing every single day in the fall, but you have 4 or 5 bad weeks where you're just kind of, and you could find yourself in that position like 8 months later. So it's really about like
choosing the portal is not for everybody.
yeah.
Sometimes you're forced into it by just getting cut, and that's
almost
hang with them.
That's almost like a blessing in disguise almost.
Yeah,
really.
because they're basically telling you you're not going to get on the field here for us. Go kick it and go find another spot that you might be able to.
Yeah.
But
It's not you, it's me.
again, like it's shitty too. Like you expect a kid to commit to a program, and you tell every kid, could you see yourself going to school here if it wasn't for baseball? But like for most Division I athletes, like we're not really thinking about that.
It's not realistic,
You're going
really.
there for the sport.
Yeah.
And as much as everybody says, you got to love the school, you got to love the school.
I heard that, yeah.
I heard it a million times.
Exactly.
I went to NJIT, is an engineering school. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't give a shit about school. It was like, all right, this is the opportunity I have for baseball, and I'm going to make school work.
Yeah.
If baseball didn't work out there, I was going to leave there in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole scenario, like go somewhere where if you get hurt or you get cut, you're gonna like it. Like no,
Yeah.
you're gonna just go somewhere else. Wagner was the #1 theater school in the country. I would have hated it there.
Yeah.
if there wasn't for baseball.
And we have, and not for, I live there, so I see it every day, but like, yeah, like obviously I went to Wagner too, and we have Stockton, which is a beautiful, awesome campus that I literally live in the same town.
Don't you dare shit on Wagner right now.
I'm not shitting on it, but if you look at Stockton's campus compared to Wagner's, it's like way not, like Stockton is beautiful.
Newer, yeah.
Yeah, it's like all this stuff is big, but that's not.
It's not on Staten Island though, which sucks for Stockton.
yeah. But
But you're not getting the Division I opportunity.
Exactly.
So that you weigh the pros and cons. Like, all right, well, do I want to play D1 baseball at a shittier school that I might not see myself at regardless?
Yeah.
Or do I want to go to this school that's nicer and just, play D3 baseball?
Yeah, and it's for a lot of guys who prioritize and come here, especially that prioritize the athletics and trying to make a career, trying to really test themselves and see what's good. Then the D3 thing becomes a non-factor. Like totally throw it out. Maybe not these days, like we were talking about, but the loving the school first is I feel like one of the bigger. I don't know if I would say misconceptions or
If
just
you play short and bat third, you love the school.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's
you're
not
gonna be
realistic.
just
Yeah,
fine.
exactly.
Like you spend as an athlete, you spend all of your time with your
All of
teammates
your time, yeah.
in the weight room, on the field, with the boys in your room. Like you travel together, you do everything together. So if you don't like the baseball side of it, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Like get out of there, or figure out how to get better and compete and get on the field. But those days seem to be gone with just how the landscape of everybody is in high school baseball, in college baseball. It's like everybody now is just, oh, I'm not happy, I'm leaving. Yeah. Instead of like sticking it out and grinding and trying to get better, it's the same thing in travel baseball too. People don't like where they're at. That man, I'm leaving, I'm taking my money and going somewhere else because my kid's better than what you say.
Yeah.
Like
And
I mean, I think the NCAA has built that on both ends. I mean, obviously the players, like, that's kind of been going on, but I mean, we see scenarios now where, like, a couple years ago, kid commits as a sophomore, right? So then, like, leading up to them going to school, they're constantly in communication with the staff. They're listening to the staff. They're doing throwing programs the staff wants them to do. They're shutting down when the staff tells them to shut down, right? And they're listening to these coaches for 3 whole years before they get to campus. They get to campus, pitch bad, cut. So it's like you just took 3 years, did everything that these people told you to do, like, completely loyal to them, and then they cut you, and now you're like, now you're like shell shocked, and it's like,
all I did was listen, coach.
I just, like, I mean, we've had a couple guys that, hey, I don't want to throw in pro day because my school doesn't want me to throw. Like, obviously they don't want you to, like, be good and possibly get drafted, but, like, when you go there and don't do well, like, then you're
They
just
don't
listening.
care.
Yeah, they don't care. That's how this goes. So I mean, it's on both ends, and I mean, I think the NCAA's got to change something.
they have to.
I mean,
Yeah.
not even just baseball, but all sports. Like, it's brutal.
I don't know what they're going to do because there's a lot of stuff up in the air and question marks, and there's just I don't know why they keep changing stuff. Like, just pick something, stick to it, and
And it sort of seems like they're just keep inflating this balloon that eventually it's got to fucking pop somehow.
What's
like,
probably going to happen is they're going to salary cap it. So NIL money. This is what I think. Like, they're not going to. You can't have a school that has 5
10
million,
million,
in NIL money, and a school that has 1 in the same conference.
yeah,
Like, they're going to have to cap
Base
it
level.
just to make it even.
Mhm.
You have to. You can't just in college baseball continually just try to buy players over and over and over.
Yeah.
Stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's not college sports. You need I think right now they're just letting it go. Wild West, let's see what happens, and then at some point they're going to regulate it and cap it and try to level it.
how do you think the big conferences? I feel like there has to be some. I feel like it has to come from the NCAA, but there's always going to be some pushback where, let's say they cap it at, $500,000 for the entire team, right? And the SEC handles that no problem, and the ACC maybe has some issues. Not that they would, but
I mean, dude, they're already at a disadvantage. Like, half of college baseball is at a disadvantage anyway. Like, I mean, you have a Northeast school that has 3 coaches. Like, one, they all have lesser salaries. Like, they don't even have a third paid coach. And
Yeah.
you're going to go down and play, Florida, who has a full paid analytics team, and they have like 2 trainers. Like, it doesn't even start.
Facilities.
The facilities. It doesn't even the games don't start. I always used to say, like, when we would pull up to, like, when we were at Wagner, I'd be like, this is not starting 0-0. Like, they got 10 staff members. They have 45 players. We have 30. Like, we left 3 at home that were, like, injured. We haven't played on the field since the fall because it's cold. It's just not even. It's not even level, and it's not. And on that end, like, we didn't even have a pitching coach. Like, we just had a head coach and then a hitting coach, and our third guy was a paid assistant infielder, or an unpaid assistant. So, versus they have 7 staff members. Like, how, like, it's not even. NIL is one thing, but there's so many things that, like, make it.
It's never really been level.
No, it's never been level even to begin with.
yeah,
I wouldn't put it past them to, cap it by conference. Like, the SEC gets a cap, the ACC gets a cap. That way, at least in conference, you can compete. It's never been level outside of conference.
yeah,
Ever.
that's true. Yeah,
So that you can keep it that way.
I just always feel like there's going to be a school that's like, why should Alabama suffer when they can get $5 million tomorrow, and Mizzou is
They ain't suffering.
no, but I'm not suffering, but I'm saying if they all get that 500,000 and Mizzou's like, yeah, 500,000 is what we can get, and Alabama's like, I could get $5 million tomorrow.
What it is.
Why am I?
Hang with them.
And that's going to be again, I think that's depending on how you look at it, that'll even out the recruiting and all that stuff and make it different, because it's like a living these days. My mom was watching the Miami football game the other day, and they have that kid on the team who's been in college for like 8 years or whatever, and she's like, why is he doing that? I was like, if he's making $60K, $70K, whatever, $100K playing Miami football, like, why wouldn't he?
I mean, it is crazy. Everybody's getting paid. Guys that don't even play are getting paid. I mean, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
I honestly, like, we have guys that went in the portal this year that got like some NIL money that I'm like, how?
Yeah,
like
nuts.
like how are these guys, like, baseball isn't this profitable? That's a problem. Like,
Yeah,
it should be like a profit share of whatever the school makes off of each player, and like they have to earn it by playing. And then if they want to get stuff outside of, like, if they want to get a sponsorship from Bose outside of it, like, be our guest if you have a big social media following or something.
Yeah.
But just donors paying is dumb. Like, there's just, you're never going to, you're never going to be able to regulate it. Like, I mean, Oregon, they have the guy from Nike. Like, they're not just going to pay every guy.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
All right,
exactly. Exactly. They could shell unlimited money. They could shell out.
Yeah.
So I kind of,
and then like you're going to start getting rich people's kids on the team just so he'll donate money. I mean, that's like, it's probably happening already, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, like, let's not get it twisted. Like in football, like and probably basketball too, like guys were already getting paid.
Oh yeah.
Just not legally.
Yeah.
But now it's legal. Like they have to regulate it somehow, some way. Have to.
I'm just curious. I'm curious to see what what it looks like and how, because it's like everyone, like we were saying, the recruiting aspect of it is all catered towards, hey, come here, whatever, bounce the next year, and then after, like, it's a huge flow that way, and then let's say they do the salary caps or just really harsh.
They need to change the transfer rule anyway. You shouldn't be able to just pick up and go.
But super harsh, like pinpoint whatever regulation on everything. And then all these coaches they just had 5-6 years of no culture and constant turnover. And then it just feels like they have to rebuild their entire program again.
Well, you have to win now. Like, you can't say, hey, I need 3 years to build this thing. It's like, no, right away, you have to win. And that's how these coaches make money. They, they don't have time.
They're trying to go elsewhere too.
Yeah,
yep.
like
and they're taking NIL to go to another school. So it's
like the head coach at a mid-major, most of the time, isn't looking to stay there.
Yeah. Like when they say that, the players are like, hey, like, well, just because you get a little NIL money, you're gonna go. Like, if you had a higher salary, you'd be out too. That's how this works. Like, and that's where a lot of people never think about that. Like, I mean, obviously that coaching staff that ended up going to Texas, like, Texas, they got paid triple the amount. They're going to lie in the interview and then immediately go to the school the next day. That's how it works. Like, they're making a better living. A lot of those guys
that were at A&M stayed at A&M.
Yeah. No, I think they all went.
No, I thought they all stayed.
The staff or the players?
The players.
Oh, the players.
I think a lot of the players stayed because one of the assistants stayed back.
Yeah.
But
I'm saying the staff.
The whole staff went to
I know the hitting, pitching, and head coach all went.
Yeah, I'm not sure
the hitting coach from Texas is at A&M now, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they swapped.
Yeah. Crazy.
Like we were talking about moving the goalposts earlier. Like, it just seems like the obstacle to reach that draft level is a huge step up, and you really got to perform. Like, I guess sort of what I'm asking is what is the outline for a player that's like, yo, I want to get drafted in 2025, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Well, I mean, one, like, your stuff has to, like, they're going to put your stuff into like a scale or a model, they're going to call it, and they're going to look at it and say, hey, if we took this guy and put him in the minor leagues, like, would he get outs today? So, like, one, you have to pass the stuff check, and that's obviously velocity, that's movement, that's everything. Two, like, you have to be sharp, you have to be able to command the ball and throw strikes. But I just think generally, like, now 88 to 92 is fairly stock.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have a ton of guys that maybe 10 years ago would have been prospects that aren't even close to being a prospect.
There's like 6 guys on our travel team that
yeah. So
locally.
It's like so now it's and that's kind of why, like, we always harp on these guys, like, oh, when you commit, like, it doesn't matter. Like, they're offering you based on what you're going to be down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think, like, just because you got an offer and you commit, like, hey, you're good. That's really not what it is. But honestly, like, I would say there's not many high school arms getting picked that don't throw 95 unless they're left-handed, and they're not 88 to 90 lefties. Like, they're going to throw 92, 93, 94. You got to have a plus breaking ball, and you got to command it, and you got to, like, ooze projection, really. But I think that's why there's going to be less high school guys taken, because why would you take a high school guy when you can take a guy that's thrown 200-something innings at Division I level? But yeah, I mean, you need to have stuff. You need to throw hard. You need to have good command. Like, you need to be, like, fully matured too. Like, we have a ton of guys that right now are like, hey, what's the next step for me? I'm like, they're 88, 91, but like you don't look like a pro prospect. Like
Yeah.
you're not fully
Yeah.
matured. You're not big enough. You're not like strong enough.
That's what I was going to say, like the physicality.
Yeah.
I feel like we've had to have a lot of
Yeah.
eat more conversations
They're
this season.
they're not drafting people like, hey, like 3 years, 4 years down the road, this guy's gonna throw hard. Like they're drafting like they want people that throw hard now that they can send you to the minor leagues and call you up. Like there's less minor league like levels now, so it's not like, hey, let's give this guy 7 years on his contract. Like they want to get you in, and if you can help, great. They have a path for you. If not, next guy. Like there's a lot of 2-3 years in the minor leagues now compared to 5 or 6 back then. Yeah.
And kind of like what we were talking about, the filter of like the NCAA, do you think it makes it a little easier on those guys, on the people that are looking at college players to draft because they know they've already been through some type of pretty serious filtration?
It's a little bit more of a safe. It's a little bit of a safer pick. Yeah. There's just, you really got to know. You got to know like what your organization's niche is. Like, what do they look for? What do they like? What do they do well with? I think that's what the good teams do. Like, there's some teams that really like to draft based off numbers, like stats. There's some teams that go off stuff. They're like, hey, give us the guys that throw the hardest with the best stuff, and we'll get them in the zone. So figuring out what your organization does, that's kind of how they're drafting.
What about like what would you say about like the Phillies sort of deal, where I feel like all of their draft picks, especially their top ones, are usually like high school guys. Like respectfully, bro, if you see this, but I have never heard of this Dante Nori kid before ever.
Who is that?
Exactly. Phillies first rounder this past year.
Yeah, the Phillies are definitely more on the stuff side now.
He's an outfielder, like I said, position player.
Okay.
But like no, but in terms of the keep going, but like I just never like where's that come from? You know what I mean?
The Phillies are kind of caught in the middle of like, I think on the minor league side, they have like a plan, like they want to draft guys with stuff. Like they'll draft a lot of guys that like didn't have great command or great stat. Like Kerkering was a good example. Like really good stuff, struggled at USF. Like McGarry, all these guys that didn't have great command but had big stuff. But they're not their biggest issue, but just that's how they run like the minor league system and the draft prospect. But at the big league level, like Dombrowski's thing is, hey, we're gonna, we're not necessarily going to call it minor league guys. We're going to, just sign or trade or claim guys that already have big league experience. And that's kind of how he does is he doesn't value the minor league system as much. And when you're in a market like Philly, like you can do that pretty well, which is what they have done.
Mm-hmm.
But, you got teams like the Yankees Dodgers who build these players, same kind of style, and then trade them for big league pieces. So it just kind of, exactly. And it just kind of depends. But, the Phillies do a pretty good job with drafting. Like they get a ton of upside guys. It's just they never really let them get a run at it in the show. They either
you look at the whole big league roster, like how many guys are homegrown?
Oh no, the Phillies are dead last.
Yeah, like
Stott's the only one I could think of.
The year they won the World Series,
Bowman, Nola are the three.
Yeah, the year they won the World Series, what was that? 08?
08, yeah.
Like more than half the team was homegrown. Yeah, it was really cool. Now, like, forget about it.
No, there was actually an article about within the last 6 years, top 10 round draft picks that got called to the show, and the Phillies were second to last with 2. And I'm pretty sure it was Bowman Stott.
Yeah, right. That's it.
And then obviously you got Rojas, but like he wasn't a draft pick; he was an international sign.
Mm-hmm.
But like some teams had upward of 30, and they have 2. So
that's sort of so.
But they're also good, and they have really good players because they just bring them in, they trade them, and that's just Dombrowski's way.
It's just a different way.
And he's the guy. Like he's not there to build long-term success. He's there to win right now. And that's he's obviously done that with the Phillies, and he did that in Boston. And like there's like. He wins, he does that, but it's definitely not like
still in my opinion. Series, Dave.
Markets,
it's definitely not my how I would do it if I was a GM.
Like I don't think you could do that in Pittsburgh or Baltimore or Tampa Bay.
Well, you see,
it has
Pittsburgh,
to be a big market team.
I was gonna say obviously Paul Skeens is total outlier, but he's had his college career to develop, like literally from Air Force to LSU, different player. Very good at Air Force, obviously, but different player. Like, developed, got really good, and then got to the bigs in a year, where it's like the Phillies. I think Aiden Miller's good, but you got Justin Crawford, Aiden Miller, Andrew Painter.
Painter's going to be the one that
Painter's
it's going to hit. He's insane.
Yeah,
he's going to be. if he didn't get hurt, he would have maybe had a faster track than
Yeah, like that dude's gonna
Skeens
be a
would have,
frontline
because he
starter.
would have made it out of camp in 22. They were pretty much setting him up to do that, kind of how they did with Stott. Like had a good year in AA, finished in AAA, big league camp. He had all the home runs and made it. Like Painter would have been the same thing, and now he obviously is waiting two whole calendar years, which sucks. But he's the truth.
Yeah.
Like, unbelievable.
It's
Command
just-
600.
Like
Yeah,
I
he's
said,
sick.
Good. Yeah, he's
sick.
nice.
like I said, I mean, I the whole Justin Crawford thing. I mean, I've heard a lot about him being maybe like a trade piece this year, but I like Aiden Miller a lot. But it's just sort of what we were talking about, where the draft is a lot harder. You got some teams that go pretty exclusively the high school route.
Yeah, the Angels 2 years ago drafted 20 pitchers. Like they said, our pitchers weren't good. They drafted 20 straight guys out of college.
That's insane.
And will that work for them? Maybe. I mean, like I don't know.
We'll
but
see.
but like there's teams that are like there's teams on every end of the spectrum, and that's what's crazy. Like there's teams that like, hey, if you have a 1 ERA, we want you. We don't know, like we just think you're good at baseball. You have teams that, hey, like if you throw 97 with 3 good pitches, we don't care what your numbers are, we'll take you. So it's crazy to see the different ideas that they draft based upon.
And I kind of want to segue this into, you guys obviously want to build kids to get drafted and kind of take their game to the next level. And I know we wanted to sort of touch on the training versus lessons aspect of what we do and why it's important in our development, where you have teams out there like the Phillies per se that love to take high school guys. So you guys make sure that your high school guys that you think have a shot, like, are going to be ready for that opportunity. And I kind of wanted to hear what you guys had to say about that and just dive into what your guys' take on it is, because I feel like you help guys a lot more in that regard, where you got guys who are getting ready for the draft, getting ready to transfer, all this different stuff, and you get to put in the hours with them through intense, like, day-to-day real training, not just picking pieces here and there.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the whole training versus lessons thing, and this is kind of, the sales pitch, so to say, is, you
Pitch it, baby.
yeah, here it comes. Get ready. You're ready to be sold. No, but if most people can only afford to do a one-on-one lesson. It's going to cost around anywhere from like $80 to $100 nowadays.
Hell yeah.
And most people can only afford to do that once a week. So you think of doing anything once a week, you're not really going to get good at it.
4 hours a month.
Right. Yeah, you're really putting it in.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, like, we do it like a monthly gym membership. So the training, you can be in here 5 days a week for that same cost.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you get in here, you're
Hours on end, not one.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a group. You can be in here for hours, 5 days a week, and like to see the difference of how much better guys get doing it that way versus doing the lessons, packing out the cage hour after hour after hour. Like, you probably make more money doing that. One, you got to grind to fill it out, but two, like, you're doing players a disservice. Like, this is not the sport where it's just, hey, let's do it every so often. Like, this is such a skilled sport. Like,
Yeah.
bigger, faster, stronger doesn't always mean better baseball player. Can it help? For sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the skill acquisition of this sport takes so much time, and you need to put the time in. You need to be in a place where you can do that. You can't just go rent a cage for an hour or get a lesson once a week and think you're going to be good at this game anymore, because it's so much more specialized. All sports are specialized now, but this one specifically is such a skilled sport. And you need to develop those skills, and it just can't happen once a week.
Wasn't it like 10,000 hours to?
That's like
The
the
mastery,
Yeah, the mastery, like 10,000 hours. Well, I mean, this.
At that rate, it'll take you
Can't-
20 years.
Yeah, like
you can't
what
spend
you're
10,000
doing,
weeks.
what you're doing in a month with 4 lessons, like we're doing in 4 days. Actually, maybe 2 or 3 days. But yeah, I mean, if you want to get good at anything, like, you need to do it often, over and over. Like, when we have guys that come in once a week, they'll come and work on Monday. They'll get good at something. They'll come back the next Monday, and like, we kind of have to restart it again. Like, now it's like, hey, you come in Monday, get it. Tuesday, let's build off of that. Wednesday, continue building that way. And it's just a faster process. Like, I think that's when we see college guys that come back that like used to look bigger and stronger and better. It's like, why is that? One, like, they're a product of a better environment, and two, they're doing baseball way more. Like, if you're going to develop skills, like, I mean, it's why, you see guys that are like, I mean, Big Joe is hitting on Daniel Hudson last night after giving up the Grand Slam. Like, that guy's, how old is he? Is he 40 actually?
I don't know.
Well, he's
Daniel
40 years
Hudson's
old, but
old,
like
yeah.
think about how many hours that guy put in to like be that skilled. He's turned 96 at 40 years old. Like,
Yeah.
You're not gonna do that, doing a lesson once a week. And like I don't think people understand the one-on-one impact that we do every day. Like, yeah, it might not be 1 hour straight, but when you do a lesson, like you're warming them up for 20 minutes, you're wasting time away. Like you're watching them throw, and then you're giving them arm care that they don't need to pay you to give. Like now we just watch every guy throw, we watch every guy hit. Like if they need a ton of help, like they're getting a ton of help, especially the new guys that come in. Like we're explaining it, so like they're basically getting a one-on-one every day.
And you're in an atmosphere with players that have been doing it for a while here.
Yeah.
Two that are the best players around, so you get to see like, all right, this guy's 3 years older than me, he's committed at here, this is where I want to get. I got I can follow what this guy does, I can watch it every day, I can see how he looks, what he eats, like all this other shit that you can do to like there's a legitimate roadmap to get there.
And what's Ed telling this guy, if we're both lefties, what's Ed telling this guy to do that maybe I could kind of pull from and watch? I remember I used to.
And also just talk to each other.
Yeah. I used to there would be times where if I was sucking, I used to try to be like the right-handed like Lope sometimes. Like try to move the bat fast and have that intent. And if you're with a one-on-one hitting guy and he's just barking the same stuff at you over and over again, it's a little bit tough. And sort of what you were talking about, warming them up, like I was going to say hitting wise, like if you're hitting a bunch of balls, the last 15 minutes of your hour, 45-minute lesson is going to be fucking picking the balls up, you know what I mean, and
giving you a break.
At that point, you're
hey bud, you need a water?
Yeah, at that point, you're at a 25 to 35, maybe 40-minute lesson that you paid the $100 for the hour for. You know what I mean?
I think it's hilarious when we get parents that call and are like, I really want to do one-on-ones. Like, do you guys do this? Like, no, we do a group style training.
Johnny needs lessons.
Yeah,
like he actually doesn't need lessons at all.
He really needs one-on-ones.
The private,
like,
the word private one-on-one is.
You think that because that's just the stigma of what you think. You've never experienced it this way yet.
No.
So why don't you give it a try?
Especially when you're young. Like you really need, somebody to sit there and watch your every single move. Like as a 9-10-year-old, like you need to be in an environment. You need to be able to like enjoy the sport, and you need to be able to like actually be challenged and get better. Like that's the whole point. But that just builds into like what we always talk about is like it being a long-term plan. There's some things that take. I mean, you see us put the pictures of like guys that have gone from like 80 to 90 or 70. Like it takes years. It takes years and years of doing things to get really good. That's kind of like ourselves sometimes to say, if you come here in 7th and 8th grade, like by the time you're a senior, if you commit to that for 6 years, like the return on your investment is going to be extremely high. And if you can just actually do that and not worried about like, I had a bad game, I need to go get a lesson. Like that's not how this works. Like even if you're doing well, there's a constant. You're trying to own the craft, and if you're doing bad, you're definitely trying to own the craft.
Yeah.
So like it's just a constant commitment to it, and being able to like come in here and utilize it to your convenience is what is going to help you actually get better.
And I think we think it gets a little bit different when you get older and in high school and in your training maybe gets a little different, but honestly, like comparing the two, it's all the same because we do the some of the guys here do the youth training, and we get guys at night who. The youth training is definitely for the kids who aren't as good, and the kids that are good are going to pretty much be the same good 10-year-old, maybe a little marginal differences. But the kids who are really not good at all, like I've seen a couple that have come through youth training that get way better just from that environment reps. reps. But they're it's not a one-on-one private thing. They're
while they're doing it, it is though. When it's their turn, it is.
Exactly. But they're in that group environment where they get to watch and hang out with their friends and be a part of that experience, but also watch what the other kids are doing. And the amount of times, dude, that they mimic each other doing all the stuff is wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But
it helps to see other people do things. Like athletes are most of the time visual learners. I could spew something at a kid all I want. Sometimes it takes me really just showing them, like being his mirror.
Yeah.
Show you what it needs to look like, tell you what it needs to feel like, and
nature
go from
versus
there.
nurture.
Nature always wins.
Yeah, but and it's sort of like, just to kind of wrap this all up, I know we're coming up, but when it comes to like that group environment, I do think that you benefit a lot from being around the like-minded people, but also just enjoying that environment more. I was very, very intimidated, I remember when I was younger, where I'd show up to, and I know kids still get nervous coming in here because they're coming in. It's like going to a new school almost, really. But you get acclimated way faster when you're around a bunch of your peers. And I used to remember going into lessons and always being like very nervous. Let me show this guy like what I'm about. Like, and if I don't do so well, it's like, fuck, I gotta figure it out for the next 15 minutes before my lesson's over. You know what I mean? And it's a little bit different vibe in here, but just thinking about like the kids, again, the youth kids, they show up 20 minutes early every single freaking time, and I'm worried about them killing themselves, but they're playing like simulated baseball down there in the pitching thing with each other. And these are kids that didn't know each other before this thing. Some of them do, but playing simulated baseball with each other, chucking the ball as hard as they can into the net or ripping the ball off the tee as hard as they can, which may seem like little kids being annoying and crazy, and I'm sure some percentage of that is the truth, but it shows that they are really buying into like this is what they want to do. They're having fun with it, and they enjoy
like coming.
Yeah, they enjoy being around each other, and that's why I think so many of them get better and show like real improvement, and that's sort of what drawing it all the way back. That's exactly what the high school kids here do. It's exactly what the pro guys who are boys come here do.
Provide an experience, not just we're trying to develop. Obviously, that's the whole point and what you're paying for, but also, like, if you can get a good experience out of it too, it's a plus.
Yeah.
If you don't want to go somewhere, like, how are you gonna use it to your benefit?
You got to enjoy coming here, and if you don't enjoy it, like, you're not gonna come.
Yeah.
Because this is gonna be where it's the easiest. Like the team practices, the waking up early, like none of that's really fun. You do that just because it's part of what you're supposed to do as a baseball player. But like this is the part where it's fun. It's only about you. It's individually built for you to get better, and like if you don't actually enjoy that process, well that's where like I think the love for baseball comes from, like enjoying the actual process of like what makes you good, instead of like just going out in the game and being good. Like, hey, I've done this so many times over and over again, like I know I'm prepared, and like seeing that work is how you kind of build like the long-term love and success for baseball.
Yeah, and you hit it right there, and I think that's where kind of the misconception comes from, where it is about you. It's about you and how much you love it. But parents and people see they got 60 guys in there. How could it possibly be about my kid? You know what I mean? Or how could it possibly be about my own success? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They sort of feel like they're just throwing a blanket on it, but that's not the case, and that's why I feel
and
like
that's why we have like 10 employees now. It's like, all right, we're trying to make sure that we give every single person that comes in here the same experience. Like whether you're working with, a pitching coach, a hitting coach, Ed, Joe, Tom, whoever, like everybody's getting the same experience. They're valued the same way, and we can provide that to more people than just the two of us doing it. And that's obviously like, where the environment piece comes from. Like now it's like 10 people are in your corner that when you come in here every time,
Yeah.
And, I mean, for us too, with the high school training, like for those older guys, that training experience carries over into the travel ball experience.
Yeah.
Like it's really cool to see these guys. We show up to a tournament. We just went to Jupiter and had a really good run. Like you see that the difference in that team versus just a big national team that just flies guys in. Nobody knows each other. They know of each other, but they're not friends yet. They might become friends on that trip, but like it's the way it all gels is nowhere near the same. Like these guys that are on our team that went down there, like they hold each other accountable in here training. And a lot of them go to different high schools in the area, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But they're all like, yo, where the hell are you at? Like, you haven't been in here. Because we're going down here to try to play and do well. And, like, to see the difference in the experience of, like, the team dynamic we had down there versus the team, like, these big national teams that we, played against and beat a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like, it was really cool to see, and it was refreshing for me, too, because it was all the teams we played, the coaches came up to us after, like, man, you guys are a good team. It was fun to play you guys because, like, you guys are a team. It's not just, what a lot of travel baseball has become at these national tournaments is, all right, let's just DM a bunch of players from all over the country, try to get them to play. We'll fly them down for free. We'll put them up. They'll play for free. We'll give them a bunch of gear. It's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. But, like, it's not an experience. You're just getting a bunch of shit and being sold playing for people who don't really know or care about you.
Yeah.
You pitch your 2 innings at your 3 ABs, and then you're, like, out before the game's even over.
Like, for us, like, we're trying to build, a national level team internally from our area, keep them together, train them all, and then go to these tournaments and play these big national level teams, it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just who can buy the most players. It's the same thing in, at the NCAA level now.
Yep.
It's like, okay, well, this team has a big backer. Sure, we'll fly you down. You'll play for this team, but like, you're not gonna have a great experience most of the time because you don't know the team,
and that directly correlates to the team's success too.
And you could see it like when we were playing the games. Like, I'm not gonna say who we played, but you can see like you have these players who are highly touted, and now they're playing for a team. They don't know anybody. There's huge expectations just behind them being there on that team. Now the players putting more pressure on themselves, and they're not performing. It's like we're playing these teams with these loaded rosters of 30 Division I, SEC, AC commits, and they're not that good.
Yeah.
Because they're just putting so much pressure on themselves versus going down as a team, playing with your boys, the guys you've grinded with.
It's not the same product.
And they just have fun and get after it and just go try to win. It's less about themselves and more just about, hey, let's go win and have fun.
Yeah.
And in return, everybody does well.
Mike, I know you got, but I mean, we're Transky and all that stuff, but
Oh, yeah. What time is it?
10:50.
Oh, yeah. We're way past.
Good?
We're good. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We'll see you guys here soon. We got Matt Caesar coming up with the next one, so that'll be a big one for us, and then we hope you guys tune in. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.